Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Cultivating the Culture. And tonight's show is going to be an ex-slave and sons of slaves, Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, and Paul Robeson. That's what we'll be going over. And as always, on our show, we have our introduction, and listen to our introduction.
The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe. I didn't die, says Joe. I didn't die. And standing there as big as life and smiling with his eyes, says Joe, what they can never kill, went on to organize, went on to organize. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, it's there you'll find your hill. It's there you'll find your hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. I never died, says he.
Welcome back. I hope you liked our introduction. Had a little singing from Paul Robeson. It's important to pay attention to the words that he had. And so this is Black Our Story Month, and we're trying to give our story, and we're covering great leaders. As we always do at the beginning of our show, we give you our introduction. Our show is called Cultivating the Culture, and we're trying to cultivate our culture to be able to come back to what we're originally on and working on this generation, next generation, and future generations. You know, most of the people plan 100 years in advance, 50 years in advance, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that change. Instead of just focus on what's in front of us, we're trying to make that change. Our show is sponsored by Umatel Iman, or A Nation of Faith, and that's our organization that we have. We work with other religions, but we sit down and we talk and we go over faith. And basically, faith has its components, which are the 6: belief in the creator of existence, belief in his angels, belief in his books, and belief in his messengers, and belief that the creator has determined everything that happens, whether it's good or bad. And also the final is the belief in the last day, or the next life, because it doesn't stop here. And talking about stopping here, that's why usually we put up our shirt is Jamaat al-Sijin, which is our prison ministry. And we say that the life of this world is, the Prophet has said that the life of this world is al-dunya as-sijnun al-mu'min wa jannat al-kafir. The life of this world is a prison to the believer, and to the disbeliever, it's like their paradise. And so this is this life that we have. It's no matter how much you may get into it from the beauty of it or other things, but it's a temporary state. And what we do is we focus on the next life. But what we do is we're trying to bring this back to our culture. And the good opportunity is that this month is everybody's into Black history or Black Our Story, and which they should always be. It should be a year-round event, or year-round thing that we're doing. So basically, what we're doing is going over some of my favorite people. I mean, you know, all of my people that have made the struggle to try to make changes are favorite people. And a lot of people, you know, you hear about their lives, you hear about certain things. And so what we're trying to do is bring these individuals to the common person, so we can be able to learn from the things that they've said. You know, a lot of times we talk about racism, We say that, oh, it's been around for 400 years. 400 years they've been doing this, they've been doing that, they've been doing that. Well, if that's been the same for 400 years, then the solution has been the same for 400 years. It may change a little or make a little adjustment depending on how deviant or what type of techniques that they use to be able to deal with you, but it's pretty much the same. So what we do is we try to look at our leaders from the past and see what they were able to do and what did they say, and then we try to move forward with that. One of the great individuals is Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass, and as we talk about our show, is called An Ex-Slave and the Sons of Slaves. And so one of the things that we want to emphasize during this month that we're going over our history is that these individuals, Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, and Paul Robeson Frederick Douglass was an ex-slave, and he had escaped for his freedom. He was a fugitive. And Marcus Garvey and Paul Robeson, both of their fathers were slaves. But look at what they were able to do. And a lot of times we're always talking about, they're doing this and they're doing that and they're stopping us and that's okay. Well, what we're going through right now is nothing compared to what these people were going through, what these people went through, what their fathers went through, what they went through during that time when it was just free willy, where they were having regular lynchings on a regular basis, where they can just come into your place and burn your whole town down. At least we have so-called restrictions. A lot of times we're just looking at, the oppression that we're going to, but we have to look at the past. What were they able to do in the past? What were the people able to rise from? A lot of times I see these shows or certain things and they talk about, oh yeah, they hung us and they killed us and they killed us and they did it, all of their victories. Because this is the victory to a person that doesn't believe. This is the victory to a person that hates us. This is the victory to the Ku Klux Klan and all of these other people when, they burned down our houses and they did. That's their victory. And we're talking about their victories to show how bad they are. Well, we know they're bad. Let's talk about our victories. This is what we need to do. And so when we have it, we need to talk about the victors. The victors, meaning people like Frederick Douglass, of course, Harriet Tubman, and various other people. So going down, Frederick Douglass was born in 1818. And he was born in Maryland. And he was born a slave. He was born somebody's property. And if you listen to the autobiography of, he has an actual autobiography that he wrote. I posted it on my Facebook so the people can be able to listen to it. And also I posted, I think it was Ozzie Davis. He had some of the autobiography. And when you hear about his life and what he went through, you said he was born a slave. And his mother died at an early age. He was basically raised by his grandfather. His father he did not know. They said that it was the slave owner or whatever. We call him a master, but he wasn't sure. But when he talks about his life, his life was rough. He gives details about the beatings and the suffering that he had, and he talks about it and. But Frederick Douglass continued to fight, throughout his life. Like if you listen to, you'll go through his life and he'll talk about it, and he'll talk about how he learned to read. He learned to read because he got sent to Baltimore. When he got sent to Baltimore, this lady took interest and she tried to teach him to read, and then her husband told him that she should not teach him to read because this will cause a Negro to be able to change. This is going to cause him to not be a good slave. And so she stopped it. But he continued to try to learn. And he did various things. I was reading where he actually said that once he learned the alphabet, he would challenge other little kids that he had, the white kids. And he would say, I know more of the alphabet than you do. And they would say no. And he would show them what he knew. And then they would show him, no, I know more. And they would show him the other letters. So he was, had this will, and he learned, and that was pretty nice. And so he continued to learn. And when he was in Baltimore, he got a chance to see people that were free, people going to other places, and he got this will to freedom. And so he continued to always have this drive for freedom. They sent him back to the country, and he was there, and he got in trouble. And he was sent to this man that was known for being able to tame Negroes. They would send you to these type of plantations. It was this guy that they would send their slaves to him, and they would send it for free. It's like a dog. You know, like when you have a dog that's out of order, you send them somewhere and they teach them how to act. Well, that's what they used to do with us. They would send them to individuals, and they would send them for free for a year. And they said it's better to send them and let him, and he would work with them, you know, but he would train them. He would train your slave or train your dog. And by the time he come back, he's well behaved. And so this guy was known for breaking. And he said from when he first got there, the guy would continue to beat him. And then eventually, one day, he said he got tired. It was just he and the guy. And they fought. And he said he fought for almost 2 hours. And he was about 14 years old. And he fought this man. And he fought the man until he beat them. And he said the man had said, look, you know, just don't tell nobody. Don't talk about it. And he said ever since then, after that, he never had any problems from the guy. He stayed there the rest of the year. And then he left and he went back to Baltimore. When he went back to Baltimore, he worked to try to, he was working at the docks. And he eventually got his freedom. He escaped. And he escaped from slavery. And he got on the train. And he went to the Free Parts, Philadelphia, and then went from there, and he ended up in Massachusetts. And so while he was in Massachusetts, he was living, and he also brought his wife, which her name was Anna. She was a free woman, but he brought her from Baltimore and brought her to the Free Territory. And once she got up there, he was working, and then he was listening to, to abolitionists. I said abolitionists. Abolitionists. And he had, looked at the word to abolish. He said he didn't know what the abolitionist was. He looked at the word to abolish. And now this man had taught himself to read. And so one of the things is I'm bringing him forth, I'm talking about his life, is because we have no excuse. Here it is, they made it illegal for somebody to learn how to read. But this, as a child, this man continued to learn. And I see people today, many people have to have their kids at home. And you're getting your education at home, and they're expecting the school. I keep hearing people say the school's supposed to do this, school's supposed to do that. No, you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to educate your child. You're supposed to put that extra work in. They do it as a supplement. But all of the basic things that they have as far as the ABCs and learning how to read, you're supposed to, put that work in. If you can't read, then go get a book, go get something, and have them work with whether it's a game or somebody else or whether brothers or sisters, and they would spend their time. So going to this man, he taught himself to read. He saw the abolitionist, and he looked at the word to abolish, and to abolish is to get rid of. He looked at it and he started getting involved. He said he went to a meeting, and when he went to a meeting, he spoke. And when he spoke to the people and he talked about his condition, the people took an interest. They took an interest in his condition. And then after he started traveling with them, they and working to still continue to free his people. And this is one of the things that we have to understand. Like when I read the Martin Luther King speech, and Martin Luther King had talked about the Good Samaritan, and the Good Samaritan talking about that. He said that the Good Samaritan saw the man in his bad condition, and he said, what is going to happen if we don't help him? And this continually what our leadership, if you look at these individuals like, Harriet Tubman, who got her freedom, but she said, what's going to happen if I don't help him? And then Frederick Douglass, he got his freedom, but he said, what's going to happen if I don't help? And he put that work in to be able to help and to fight against slavery, fight against this institution. He wrote books and taught and had lectures, and he continued to live the rest of his life, working with our people. One of the things I'm gonna mention, our telephone number, we've talked before. Number's 301-429-9247. 301-429-9247. So Frederick Douglass, when he actually eventually he went to England, and when he went to, and what happened was he was a fugitive because he escaped slavery, and then they had the fugitive slave laws, so you can be able to come and capture, you can come back and capture it. So he was putting his life on the line because he could have got sold back to slavery. But he went to England. When he was over in England, he experienced less racism over there while he was there, which is was different. But he was able to, they gathered some money and they bought his freedom. So when he came back to America, he was a free man. But even as a free man, he continued to fight. He continued to fight to be able to free the people. Hold on for a second. We have a caller. he continued to fight to be able to free his people and never give up. So, okay, going back to it. So, hold on for a sec. Yeah, we're always having problems with the phones. We're getting it and stuff. So, going back to it, Frederick Douglass never stopped. When he got a chance, okay, I'm gonna try again. When he got a chance to, hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good.
Okay, and you're calling from?
I'm calling for the WVR network.
Okay, and you're calling for? Oh, you're trying to reach this?
Yes, sir, but...
Okay, thank you very much. We're having a show. Sorry, I thought it was the line for the show. Thanks. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm manning the actual phone. So, but anyway, going back to where I was, like I said, hopefully you guys will call in. So anyway, he continued to fight until when we had the Civil War. There was a conflict going on, and Frederick Douglass was very instrumental in getting Abraham Lincoln to have us to use blacks to fight in the war, use us for the freedom. After the Emancipation Proclamation, Frederick Douglass was active in trying to make that happen and saying that we had the ability. That's why if you look at the Massachusetts Regiment, that when in the movie Glory, they were from where Frederick Douglass had a stronghold in, and they went down, but of course, and we got our freedom. We got our freedom. Frederick Douglass, if you, like I said, research, study his life, look at the things that he was able to do, look at what he was able to achieve. He has a home in the District of Columbia, D.C., and in Southeast. And this home that he has, okay, hopefully this is, okay, I'm going to try line one. Hello?
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, great.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, sorry about that. Got disconnected. Hey, I wanted to ask you, in particular, what do you feel, separate of Marcus and, other revolutionaries, what made Frederick Douglass's success so remarkable and unique to him and his struggle?
The thing that about him was, to me, that I admired so much, if you would actually, matter of fact, read his autobiography, and actually he in the autobiography he did an appendix, and I was going to read that at the end to his autobiography. For a man that taught himself to be able to read, to have a vocabulary that he had was amazing. Just the willingness to fight. First of all, for him to be able to fight as a young man with a grown man like that showed he had an ability. And a lot of times in our society we show thug life as though this is real or this is rough. No, this is a rough man. So this is a man that was being owned like a dog, treated like a dog. And for him to rise, and if you go to his house in Southeast and you see what he was able to achieve, it's amazing. But he continued to help his people until he died. So,
Okay.
I mean,
So,
go on.
so then, that separates them. What underlying traits have you noticed from all of them that you see in these people that most of us should try to exemplify to accomplish what they did?
One of the things that, other than with Frederick Douglass, other than escaping slavery, which to me that wasn't illegal, that was legal and the rights of God. They pretty much stuck with following the law, staying out of trouble, and being consistent. If you look at Frederick Douglass, you look at Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, they set him up, with that situation. Same thing with Paul Robeson. These guys were just great achievers, had talent, but they, never forgot about their people, and then they stayed strong as men. They weren't scared to speak up, in situations. And like I said, and they were willing to work with other people. You didn't really find them getting into the clashes, especially Frederick Douglass or Paul Robeson, as far as with other people. They were just focusing on the talent that God had given them, and then moving forward, And they were strong men, all of them, every last one of them. So, but like I said, when you think about Frederick Douglass being owned like a dog, and that's why I keep using that term, because that's how they treated us. I was reading when in his autobiography, he was talking about how he had to literally fight with the pigs to get food, because his the owner, master, whatever, was that trifling when it came to giving food to his slaves in the country and stuff. So, to go through that condition, to go through that type of life, and then the possibility of them being killed. We look at 1968 and 1965, or really all of the people that was killed, and after that everybody got scared because you could die. These guys were in real situations, continuously, where they could have been killed, in a situation where they could be publicly killed and no one would go to jail for it and stuff, but they continued to fight for the cause.
Okay, absolutely.
So, I mean, what do you know much about? Do you know much about Frederick Douglass, or?
I mean, in relation to what you're saying about your emphasis on the treatment of and the comparison to that of a dog, in the book he does mention the separation from his mother, at birth. And that was a common practice that they had. But he said they separated them at birth, sent his mom to a neighboring plantation, and to make sure that, there was no relation, and when his mom was sick, she passed away at 7, they made sure she never got to see her, he never got to see her. When she passed away, he never got to see her. He doesn't, no recollection, and wasn't able to create that affection, that a human should have between, the person that birthed them and, themselves. And so, just those practices that, that's what you would do with a dog, in a sense, when you're trying to, break the psyche of them.
Right. And that's why, it bothers me when I hear black people calling themselves dogs. Men calling themselves dogs. People calling themselves things that walk around for. A female dog is a B, and a woman proud to be something that walks around on all fours. Here it is, they actually treated us and categorized us, with dogs. Actually, the overseers became dog trainers, or were excellent dog trainers. That's why when they talk to them, they say, dog trainer, when he refers to a female canine, they call him a B. And then they say, see this B? And the same type of treatment, the same way that they train that B, that dog, that's how they do that's how they do us, or that's how they do our women. And here it is, this is something that was forced upon us. But now what I call a lot of people, they're volunteer slaves. They're being, volunteer slaves to get yourself locked up and be, part of that exception in that clause of the 13th Amendment where slavery is illegal, except in that case. Volunteer slaves, when you volunteer to call yourself a dog, or to call yourself a bee and be proud to walk around on fours. Dogs walking around on fours, we're standing on twos, and here it is, we were forced to do this, and now people are volunteering to do it. It's a shame. So, anything else?
No, man, no, that's it. Anything
well, I appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. I'm going to finish off, like I said, with Frederick, because one of the things we had to picture, and these are all the different modes. But I'm going to read real quick, because, like you said, this is with his, he used to talk about the slave masters, how he had, one of his slave masters got a religion, and he thought that maybe he would change, and Frederick Douglass would continually read the Bible, but he was an intelligent man, and he was able to see the truth in it, and see the hypocrisy from those that were calling themselves men of God, but were slave owners. And he despised those people because he said that they became worse because they would actually use it. And a lot of times I see people today online, the Bible was used to to keep us in this condition. No, using it in the wrong way. No different than a police officer who has a job to do, and his job does not call for him to beat up on black people, flip them over, and kill them and all of that. His job calls him to do something else, but he chooses to do other. And the same thing, with the Bible and what it's calling to. The people, they use it. But I'm going to read real quick in the appendix that he had, and he was giving some clarification about his belief of Christianity or his belief in God. And this is where we have to be, not take the position that because they're hypocritical, then we reject our truth. And like I always tell people, this is the history of ourselves. This is the history of North Africa. If you look at, just pull up the word Semitic people, the Semites. By Semites, African Semites, those are the people of the time, not, who we see as Ashkenazis or European Jews. They're Jews as far as religion. Like, I'm a Muslim, but I'm not an Arab. So the same thing as far as that. This is a history of people from North Africa. We shouldn't reject it. But I'm just going to read. It says, this is what he, and then I'll finish off and we'll go on to Marcus Garvey because we have limited time. But Frederick Douglass, in his book, in his appendix, he gave some clarification. And like I said, his vocabulary is beautiful. He said, I find, since reading over the foregoing narrative, that I have, in several instances, spoken in such a tone and manner respecting religion as may possibly lead those unacquainted with my religious views to suppose me as an opponent of all religion. To remove the liability of such misapprehension, I deem it proper to append the following brief explanation. What I have said respecting against religion, I meant strictly to apply to the slave-holding religion of this land, and with no possible reference to Christianity proper. For between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference. So wide that to receive the one as good, pure, and holy is of necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. To be the friend of the one is of necessity to be the enemy of the other. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. I look upon it as the climax of all misnomers, the boldest of all frauds, the grossest of all libels. Never was there a clearer case of stealing the livery of the court of heaven to serve the devil in. I am filled with audible loathing when I contemplate the religious pomp and the show, together with the horrible inconsistencies which everywhere surround me. We have men stealers for ministers, women whippers for missionaries, and cradle plunderers for church members. The man who wields the blood-clotted cowskin during the week fills the pulpit on Sunday and claims to be a minister of the meek and the lowly Jesus. The man who robs me of my earnings at the end of each week meets me as a class leader on Sunday morning to show me the way of life and the path of salvation. He who sells my sister for the purposes of prostitution stands forth as the pious advocate of purity. He who proclaims it a religious duty to read the Bible denies me the right of learning to read the name of God who made me. He who is the religious advocate of marriage robs whole millions of its sacred influence and leaves them to the ravages of wholesale pollution. The warm defender of the sacredness of the family relations is the same that scatters whole families, sunders husbands and wives, parents and children, sisters and brothers, leaving the hut vacant and the hearth desolate. We see the thief preaching against theft and the adulterer against adultery. We have men sold to build churches, women sold to support the gospel, and babes sold to purchase Bibles for the poor heathen. all for the glory of God and the good of the souls. The slave auctioneer bell and the church bell go chime in with each other, and the bitter cries of the heartbroken slave are drowned in the religious shouts of his pious master. Revivals of religion and revivals in the slave trade go hand in hand together. The slave prison and the church stand near each other. The clanking of fetters and the rattling of chains in the prison, and the pious psalms and the solemn prayer in the church may be heard at the same time. The dealers in the bodies of souls of men erect their stand in the presence of the pulpit, and they mutually help each other. The dealer gives his blood-stained gold to support the pulpit, and the pulpit and the pulpit in return covers his infernal business with the garb of Christianity. Here we have religion and robbery, the allies of each other, devils dressed in angels' robes, and hell presenting the semblance of paradise. Wow. So, said the Christianity of America is a Christianity of, so here, when he's talking about it, he's not talking about Christianity, the Bible, the message of Jesus that Jesus delivered, because the message that Jesus delivered was pure. But he's talking about the hypocrisy of these people, and he's talking about what they did. So I suggest that you read it. It's pretty intense. Did you hear it? Sorry, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What do you think about that? And we're going to go to Marcus Garvey. He can change his picture.
Great distinction, and it's a distinction that needs to be made, because a lot of people now will, black people in general, when it's a younger generation, when it comes to religion, they look at the church, the church mom, church woman who's judgmental of them, and then say the religion is bad. But right there, this person can be claiming the religion, and they don't look at, the slave owner is claiming a religion, and the person who's getting indignified doesn't look at the religion as evil, and they just see that the man is evil and twisting, what should be something that's celebrated.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest things of the devil is with his tools that he uses. He tries to act like he's, he'll send somebody to represent it, to represent the religion, to get you to turned off. And that was one of the things that they didn't want us to read the Bible, to be able to see what the truth of the Bible, said, or read the Quran even. You have it a lot of times, people in Islam, they'll say, oh, some Muslims did this, some Muslims did that. Well, our religion is not based on what the Muslims do, what the Arabs do. Our religion is based on what the Creator said. When I did the Timbuktu the other week, and I was studying and going over Morocco and what was going on, even some of the things in Spain where they were castrating men. This is haram. This is haram. You don't do that. We were castrating the men so they can be around the women. No, this is haram. Nowhere did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do this or call to that, or any of the people at his time. Allah did not send revelation. So you're doing something to human beings that you're not supposed to be doing. So that's not Islam. And too many times, instead of the people looking at, are these people representing what they say? Just like I say, the police officer, that's, the people hating police because these guys who are racist most of the time, regular racists, live their lives as racist, probably part of race organizations, are doing their deviant acts. They're saying, they look at the uniform that they're in or what they claim to be. So same thing with religion. All right? All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to open up the lines. Hopefully somebody else will call in. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. That was good. So, next we should put up Marcus Garvey. And so, Marcus Garvey, the reason why, we're going over is Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, he's from Jamaica. And one of the things is whether you're from Jamaica, whether you're from Brazil, whether you're from the islands, we share the same history. When they had the auction block, if some Frenchman was there and you had your whole family on there, and you had the mother and the father and 7 kids, and a Frenchman came up and took him over to Haiti, and a Spaniard came up and took him over to Cuba, or a Portuguese person came up and took him to Brazil, and separate them. You come back 2 generations, they're looking at each other, they travel, and they're like, wow, that person looks like me or looks like my family, but then he'll speak in Portuguese, he'll speak in Spanish, or he'll speak in English, and they look at him like, oh, that's not my family, he's a foreigner. But this is what happens. We hold on to the languages and the culture of the people that separated our families. I speak English. Does that mean I'm promoted in English? Am I English? No. The reason why I speak English is because my people came here. I'm gonna take the claim that they came from Timbuktu. They were scholars, inshallah. But they knew Arabic and they knew the other African languages. They came here intelligent, and then these people came and they forced the language upon them. So but there's that separate me. So the history of Jamaica, the history of Haiti, the history of Cuba, the history of Brazil, these other places, is we share history. We are one common people. One of the major things that Malcolm X was doing was continuing the movement of Garvey. When we talk about Malcolm X, a lot of times people like to give all claim to Elijah Muhammad as though he took him from ignorance and brought him to the knowledge. I mean, alhamdulillah for what he was able to do. But the reality is that Malcolm X's father was a Garveyite, and he was there preaching to the people, and he got killed. Why? Because he was standing up for justice. So when you have a father like that, when you have a father that stands up and is willing to die for his cause, and which he did, they took him to a railroad track, the train ran over his head, cut his head, severed his head. Terrible experience. That's how your father died. Your father dying for the cause. So even though, because his mother went into insane asylum, and the kids tried to keep him together, and then from an age of, I guess, 15 or 14 to 21 or whatever, 20, he was bad. 6 years. Okay, 6 years of his life he went astray. But the thing is so you're talking about before that he had the many things from Garvey, and then of course Elijah came in and it reorientated him. So going back to Garvey was born in Jamaica, and Garvey, when he came to the United States, and when he came, he came from there. He came into New York, and they started a organization. At that time there was a lot that was going on in New York City, in the areas, as far as we had Booker T. Washington and A. Philip Randolph, and A. Philip Randolph was actually one of the people that introduced him in. And so when he came to America, there was this drive of our people, because we had got our freedom. We had Madam C.J. Walker, who was putting a lot of money into the cause. So Marcus Garvey set up an organization, and the reason why I go over Garvey is today we use the red, black, and green, right? Well, the red, black, and green, that was something that started with Marcus Garvey and Marcus Garvey's organization. And we still have that basically 100 years later. So here it is. This is a beautiful statement. It says, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. I'll say that again. A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, culture is like a tree without roots. So in order for us to really be able to know our past history, we have to do a little bit more than sit down and watch a show, do this Black History Month, listen to what is on from the media, and especially to really be able to hear it clear. We actually have to do some work from the time with Marcus Garvey from the 1915 was also the beginning of Hollywood and their movies, their propaganda machines. These were the things where they were creating images. They started choosing our leaders when it came to sports, when it came to politics, when it came to anything. They were the ones. Prior to that, with the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey and all that, we were able to choose our leaders. Jack Johnson, great man. And he became a leader because he was able to knock legally knock out a white man in America, and actually it caused riots and stuff. So going back to Marcus Garvey was able to take his organization and basically a 7-year period, go from 0 followers to a couple hundred followers, 40,000 member army, and also 3 like cruise ships, and cruise ships. They were trying to buy land in Liberia to a rubber plant. And one of the things was he also is one of the first real known Pan-Africanists, trying to be able to get us to do business. And that business move that he was making with Liberia, we would have a different Liberia if it had happened. Because what happened, he was purchasing his land, Liberian government ended up selling this rubber plant. They sold it to Firestone. And look at Firestone now. But what did Firestone do? Firestone controlled that place, and they kept Liberia down for so long. Imagine if they had sold it to him, and the finance that they would have benefited, because this was the beginning of Henry Ford, where they started having the factories and using the tires. And those tires that we would have been driving around in Garveys, or driving around in other another name from it. So Marcus Garvey with his Marcus Garvey. Wait, hold on for 1 second. Yeah, Marcus Garvey with his organization. And hold on 1 second. Let me get my paperwork together. I was hoping that people would call in. We got number 301-429-9247. 301-429-9247. That's 301-429-9247. So, anyway, but going back to Garvey is what they did. The way they were able to bring down Garvey is the infiltration. And talking about infiltration, a movie came out, Judas. The Judas or the Black Messiah. I saw that last night, and it made me think of Garvey. Made me think of that situation. So Marcus Garvey actually, when J. Edgar Hoover, his first real case was to get Marcus Garvey. One of the first black agent was the person that they assigned to Marcus Garvey. And actually this was before the FBI was another name where Hoover got his chance, and they worked to set this man up. And so that shows, you have individuals that have their goals, and they're constantly trying to, the so-called Black Messiah, trying to, stop us when we're trying to do some type of effort to work together. Marcus Garvey was not here to destroy the white man, that type of situation. They always take it that when you're focusing on yourself and trying to build, then, they're saying that you're trying to destroy. I mean, Marcus Garvey, he just had his organization, Universal Negro Improvement Association, or UNIA, and also the Black Star Liner, what they were trying to do. He was trying to build. And for this man to be able to achieve all that he did in that short amount of time shows what we can do today. And that's why I'm putting forward. I'm not going to give you a whole history here because we don't have time. So a whole history of him, but you need to study. You need to look at what he was able to do in that short amount of time and be able to build. But like I said, what they did was they had somebody that was working with him. They got him on mail for it, but all it was that they had a stamp of a ship that they were one of the Black Star Liners, and one of the ship was not the ship that he was selling, and that's what they got him on. They said that they got him on for it. So okay, well, I'm glad I actually put it on because we have to speed up with our time. Next one that we're going to is Paul Robeson, and Paul Robeson. Matter of fact, let's play Paul Robeson on there. Thank you very much for the reminder.
Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? And why not every man? He delivered Daniel from the lion's den, Jonah from the belly of a whale, and the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, and why not started disappear. Yes, freedom shall be mine. Did my Lord deliver? Daniel deliver, Daniel deliver, Daniel. Did my Lord deliver? Daniel, why not every man?
Beautiful voice. And yes, my Lord did deliver Daniel, and he can deliver us. We just have to be able to listen. The reason why he delivered Daniel is because Daniel was obedient, and we have to go back to obedience. This brother had a beautiful voice. Going over it because we have these last 10 minutes. We're going over with Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson, his father was a slave, and he was born in Princeton. He was born in Princeton, New Jersey, and this man. So here it is, going back to it, in this condition, from a person that was owned, his father was owned, who he also escaped, and he got his freedom. Many of these people escaped, and we're not hearing about this. We're hearing about all the people that was killed and kept in servitude. No, his father was a man that escaped and got his freedom, and then was in Princeton. He was a reverend, and he actually got his degree from the father got his from Lincoln. And so Paul Robeson, this 6'3" man, got into Rutgers University. In Rutgers, they didn't have blacks in there. I think it was like the third black at the university. He played football, and at that time, they were, of course, blacks weren't playing in college football. He was able to make the team, and with that, he also, when he graduated, he went to Columbia University. Paul Robeson was an All-American athlete. At the time they didn't have blacks that was All-American athlete. 4 years in a row, he won. He was on the debate team, and he won. He won as far as top orator. And so then when he went to Columbia University, they had a parade for him. So, and one thing about Paul Robeson is here we are, we hardly hear about him. They don't show much on him, and I'm actually going to let you hear him talk right here. This is and he was older, and it was on the show. So, okay, wrap it up. We're wrapping it up. So I'd rather let you hear some of this.
Negro who for so long has been a second-class citizen in the United States.
He's still a second-class citizen.
How is it that he's contributed so much to American culture?
Well,
music, dance, everything you can think of.
Well, I'd have to be very modest about that. I would say certainly as we look at the African peoples in Nigeria, for example, I just got a wonderful invitation to go to Nigeria to be present at the installation at the Governor General Ezekwe, an old friend, who and I had to cable him. I'm in Australia. I certainly would like to be with you, but I'm out here with some good folks. But I'll get to Nigeria later.
Mr. Robeson, do you feel that Africa is to some extent an affinity for it, a home, or do you still feel America is essentially your home? How do you feel?
Well, let me come here. I'll come to that in just a second. But to come back to it, so I would say the Africans and the American Negroes have turned out to be an extraordinarily gifted people.
Extraordinarily gifted people.
That by not making us full-class citizens as yet in America, they may be losing, I don't know how much yet. So,
and America continues to lose because...
I would say that unquestionably, I am an American, born there. My father slaved there. Upon the backs of my people was developed the primary wealth of America, the primary wealth. You have to have accumulated wealth to start, to build. You did it another way here in Australia. You had to build your accumulated wealth too. You just came and took it. You know what I mean? And that's what they did in most.
See, look how you tell them. Like you said, they took
what you Europeans did. You just we got to catch up with you a little bit. That's so in America. So there's a lot of America that belongs to me yet. You understand? But just like a Scottish American is proud of being from Scotland.
And they asked me why I like this guy.
School books, they tried to tell me
speaks
that all
English
Africans
well,
were
spoke 23 different
I got
languages.
to London and found most of the Africans I knew
stands up.
going to Oxford and Cambridge and doing very well, and learned their culture. And even once somebody had the temerity after one had
audacity,
the Chinese people and imposed upon them the opium trade and everything else to suggest that they were a backward people, just the people who had been civilized so long over the rest of you folks didn't make any sense at all. So somewhere it was wonderful to find about the colored peoples of the world that
he was in the NFL when it first
started. So I would say today,
NFL
I'm an American who is infinitely proud
Columbia University Law School
African descent. No
actor. How many of this generation?
I'm an Afro-American, and I don't use the word American.
You need to return to that. They need to study. All athletes need to study him. You go on to the next one. Look at this. All the athletes need to study. All American athlete, actor, activist, but spoke 23 different languages fluently. Sang in different countries and sang in those languages. And so here this is at the beginning with media, when media was just being able to use it, but that's why media wants to not show those type of images, because media wants to show you clowns and buffoons and say the only way that we were able to act is if we play some roles. Here's something, the last part.
And the cultural elite.
They tried to combat him against Jackie Robeson, and him, because they were like, okay, here's your great athlete.
I remember asking Dad, look, get me Jackie's autograph, please. And so Dad told me, well, I can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that? I mean, get his autograph. He said, no, I can't do that. And he explained, he said, I'm now being attacked in the media as an enemy of the state, as a communist, as a traitor. And he said to me, if Jackie had his picture taken of me, which is what would happen, he might lose his career. I'm not going to put Jackie in that position, even for you.
Isn't that beautiful?
By the late 40s, Cold
that type of competition that they get us to battle, he was like, no, I'm not going to put that person in position,
when he told
even
the
though
French
he was in
audience
opposition to
that
him.
African Americans would not fight in a war against the Russians.
So, Dad was acutely aware that he could be killed. I mean, that his life was in danger.
Like I said, continually
on his political course.
knowing that he can be killed, but they still,
Dad wasn't about to change
for
his
us.
views.
So why we still?
And both my mother and I said, well, do what you have to do. So I think we lived with that danger. I think Jackie Robinson, in different contexts, learned to live with it, especially because he was so outspoken. So in that sense, there was a similarity.
Jackie Robinson was invited by the House Un-American Activities Committee to give lie to Robeson's statement. Ricky saw this as
Now
an
it was
opportunity
constantly
to
trying to
denounce
use us
communism.
against each other.
Dad wasn't surprised.
Keep us in our place. They find somebody,
the first
and they tried to use Jackie.
black player in baseball,
Jackie came.
he called down.
But Jackie spoke
to
against
make a
racism.
statement denouncing Paul Robeson. As a matter of fact, he told me if Jackie had refused and forced them to subpoena him, he would have never had a baseball career.
At Ricky's urging, Robinson testified, calling Robeson's comments silly. He then took the opportunity to rebuke Jim Crow before the committee.
Americans to me will tell you the same thing. But that doesn't mean that we're going to stop fighting race discrimination in this country until we got it licked. It means that we're going to fight it all the harder, because our state and the country is so big, we can win our fight without the communists, and we don't want their help.
Actually, the committee was not at all happy with his testimony, but it couldn't hang him because he had, quote, criticized
This
Paul
Paul
Robeson
Robeson, something by the way. That's
at least
Paul Robeson
indirectly
Jr.
had said that he was a loyal American, so he got away with it. But he was taking a considerable risk to say even what he said. What people don't realize is the situation he was in, and he's been unjustly, in Dad's view then, and in my view now, accused of, quote, being an Uncle Tom by going down and attacking and condemning Paul Robeson for the white American elite.
While liberals believed he had lost sight of the cause, many of his teammates thought he was becoming too political.
Okay.
The only criticism I had of Jackie was, I thought he agitated in a way that didn't always gain him enough points. But in some ways, he was too
He didn't stay in his
intense
place.
to
That's
wait.
basically what he wants to
I
say.
looked out the window in the clubhouse in the St. Louis Cardinal Stadium one day, and I saw, and this is 1949, maybe 1950, 10,000 black people sitting in the street when there's only 3,000 seats available for them in the bleachers. It's the way in
The blacks could only sit in the bleachers back then.
I'm not going to play tonight. Can't be, you're not going to play tonight. We're not going to play. We're going to take uniform off. And it seems somehow somebody heard it, because those stands, the next strip opened up to everybody.
The Sporting News reported, a problem grows in Brooklyn. Robinson should be a player, not a crusader.
You can pause there. Like you said, a problem grows in Brooklyn. Robinson should be a player, not a crusader. Always trying to dictate how we're supposed to be. And one of the things is when we talk about supremacy is pushed through this media. The media, once they came in, once they were able to come into our homes, come into our minds, instead of having a picture of a white Jesus, they take this thing, they put it up there, and then they show you things to show that you're inferior. They're not going to show you the greatness of a Paul Robeson. They're not going to show you the greatness of a Marcus Garvey. They're not going to show you the greatness of a Frederick Douglass. They're going to show you in all the greatness of Martin Luther King. They'll show you his greatness of what they want to say, I have a dream. They'll show you Malcolm X in his way. They'll show you these people in a way, and that is why it's important for us to be able to control our own media, but not a media that's going to be looking for selling commercials. Because once you sell commercials, whoever you're selling to, whoever becomes your customer, they're dictating. We should be able to have our own media where we put our money into it and support it, and it gives the truth. And it gives the real history, and it becomes a motivator. It becomes the replacement of that supremacy tool that they have there. That we're hoping to be the first black on TV, the first black show, the first black. No, let's be able to have some truth. Let's be able to give our story, and I appreciate it. And I hope you like our story that we have, and not his story that they usually give about our brothers. And may you do your work to be able to study our story and find out what our story is, because his story is not the story. Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. Paz contigo. Salam alaikum. Thank you, and see you next week. Next week on the 21st. That's the annual event as far as Malik Shabazz or Malcolm X being assassinated. So we'll focus our show on his life and his death, and going over that and moving forward. Moving forward. We found out, everybody knows who killed him and all of this. How do we move forward with the agenda that he was on, which is a continuation of the agenda that all of us was on? How do we get back and continue to have leadership that's going to train leaders and not followers? Peace be with you. Thank you very much.